Hello guys, this is Adip. Welcome to my channel Movement Science where I simplify biomechanics and also lot of ortho topics with Joe. So if you are new to this channel, consider subscribing. Also check me out on Instagram where I post daily MCQs and also pictures of my notes. The reference time for all the topics that I am going to cover will be mentioned down in the description. So check that out and let's get started. In this video, we are going to talk about the hip joint function. So what is the function? The movement, right? The kinematics of the hip joint. So under the hip function, whenever we are describing the movement, that is flexion, extension, abduction, adduction and internal external rotation, we always first talk about the axis and plane in which it occurs. Then we talk about the range and then the restricting factors, right? So let's start with the axis and the planes. So flexion and extension will occur in your sagittal plane, which cuts Joe into two parts, and it will occur around the coronal axis. Okay, then there is the frontal plane movement, that is abduction and adduction. This is the frontal plane and it will occur around the anterior posterior axis. And then finally the internal and external rotation, basically internal rotation and external rotation, where your leg goes in and out like this. This will occur in the transverse plane, right? Transverse plane and the vertical axis. So now that we know about the axis and the planes in which these motions occur, let's go ahead with the topic. So we will further divide this topic into two parts, that is the motion of femur on your pelvis and then motion of your pelvis on the femur, which is both the function at the hip joint, right? The movement at the hip joint. So this video will be about the motion of the femur on your pelvis. Okay, so it's pretty simple. There is flexion, extension, abduction, adduction and internal and external rotation. Under each of these movements we will look at the range of motion. We will look at the limiting factors. What are the muscles or the structures which limit these ranges? And then we will look at the femoral, anteversion and dysplastic hip, how they are connected and can cause problems in your body. So to start with, your flexion and extension movement can be done at your hip joint with your knee flexed or knee extended, right? So if I take Joe over here, he will flex his knee and then do hip flexion, or he will extend his knee and then do hip flexion. So when you do hip flexion with your knee flexion, the range will be around 0 to 120 degrees. Whereas when you do the flexion of the hip with knee in extended position, the range will reduce to only 90 degrees. Now why is this? This is because of your hamstring. That is it is a two joint muscle and it causes passive insufficiency. Now we have discussed about passive and active insufficiency in our knee videos, but I'll still mention this again because it's a very important topic. So basically what passive insufficiency tells us is that when there is a two joint muscle, this is very important, a two joint muscle, that is a muscle that crosses two joints. Over here hamstring crosses hip and your knee joint, right? So when there is a two joint muscle, it is difficult for this two joint muscle, that is your hamstring, to stretch effectively at both the joints. What do I mean by this? See, the range is reduced over here, right? 0 to 90 degree when the knee is in extended position. So if I take Joe, your hamstring is coming from your hip joint, it is crossing the hip joint and then it is crossing the knee joint, right? So when I'm doing hip flexion, it's getting stretched over here along with knee extension. So knee is also extended here, so it is getting stretched even at the knee. If it is flexed, it's not getting extended at the knee, right? So it can stretch effectively. But if I'm stretching it at both the joints, it is difficult for the muscle to give the extra range of motion that was possible with knee flexed. So that is your passive insufficiency. Basically, it is inability of your muscle to stretch effectively at both the joints. Okay, so that was about your hamstring muscles. Then going to the extension part. Now hip extension can also be done with knee flexed or knee extended. If your knee is flexed, the range of motion will reduce this time. Okay, and if knee is extended, the range of motion will increase this time. You don't have to get confused about this. just look at the insertion and origin of your rectus femoris, because that is the culprit over here. So if you take rectus femoris, it's crossing the hip joint and the knee joint on the anterior side, right? So now what am I doing? I'm doing extension at the hip joint, right? So now what is happening over here? The rectus femoris is not stretched at the knee joint, but it is getting stretched at the hip joint. But now if I do knee flexion, it will get stretched even at the knee as well as the hip. So this is your passive insufficiency. So the range will be reduced with your knee flexed compared to knee extended, right? I highly suggest you guys to try this on yourself. Take your knee into flexion and then try doing a hip flexion, and then just compare it with the knee extended position. You'll see the difference. You'll feel the stretch at the hamstring. And this is a very important concept when it comes to stretching. Whenever you are giving stretching to your patient, you can vary the amount of tension in your hamstring by changing the position of the second joint, right? It's a two joint muscle, so either joint you can change the position and you can stretch different parts of the muscle. Then going to the next part, abduction and adduction. Your abduction is around 45 to 50 degrees. So you have around 45 to 50 degree of abduction, and this is limited by your gracillis muscle, mainly the gracillis muscle. There are other adductors too which limit this abduction movement, but mainly the gracillis. And then going to the adduction movement is around 20 to 30 degrees. So that is called as cross adduction, where you go inward towards your midline, and here your TFL and IT band. TFL is coming, gluteus medius and TFL is coming from here, and it is attaching through the IT band to the knee, right? So this adduction movement will be prevented by your TFL and IT band. Just for a recall, the gracillis is a part of the three muscle, that is the SGS, right? And which are those muscles? The sartorius, gracillis and semitendinosus. And it is called as the pes anserinus. Moving ahead, there is the internal and external rotation at the hip joint, which is around 42 to 50 degrees. And lateral rotation is specifically reduced with femoral anteversion, which is commonly seen in dysplastic hip. Okay, so here where it gets very interesting, there is a chain of things that happen, and it's just very fascinating for me. So your lateral rotation, I said, reduces with your femoral anteversion, which is mostly seen in your dysplastic hip, right? Now why is this? This happens to basically minimize the stretch on the anterior capsule and also to maximize the congruence. So we know that dysplastic hip is basically your acetabulum is not nicely formed, right? It's comparatively shallow. So if this is your normal hip where your acetabulum is nicely covering, now I take a dysplastic hip. In dysplastic hip, your acetabulum will be very shallow, right? It will be shallow. It won't be very congruent. Okay, now if it's very shallow, to maximize the congruence, your head of the femur, this is the head, neck and the shaft, okay, your head of the femur will be comparatively on a medially rotated or medial femoral torsion will be seen at the hip to increase the congruency with the articulating surface. Also, another reason will be to minimize the stretch on the anterior capsule. As we all know, if acetabulum is very shallow, the demand of stability will be given to the hip joint by your capsule, right? And this capsule will go under a lot of stretch if your femur is in a laterally rotated position, because it will try to come out or it will be prone to anterior dislocation. So to prevent this, your femur will be in a comparatively medially rotated position, also called as the medial femoral torsion. Now this medial femoral torsion will give rise to other problems. The first problem will be the lateral tibial torsion. So because your femur is going for medial femoral torsion, to compensate that, your tibia will go for lateral tibial torsion. And we all know that with lateral tibial torsion, what will we see? We will see supination of the hind foot. If you have not checked out my videos on ankle, do check it out, where I've talked about this concept. When your tibia rotates laterally, your calcaneum will go for inversion and there will be supination of the foot. And we all know that a supinated foot is a rigid foot and it will not have shock absorption. See, no shock absorption when you are walking or doing the other activities. Okay, so what did we see? In a dysplastic hip where there is femoral anteversion, or more known as the medial femoral torsion, your femur basically rotates medially, right? And to counterbalance this medial torsion, your tibia will rotate laterally, okay, laterally. And then what did we see in our ankle joint? Like we saw that when there is lateral rotation of tibia, your calcaneus goes for inversion and then there is development of this arch, right? It's a supinated foot when your tibia rotates laterally, and when it rotates medially, it's a flat foot, right? So what does a supinated foot do? It is a rigid foot and there is no force absorption. That's the problem with your ankle. Hence all the forces will be transmitted upward and all this excess force is not good for your joints, right? So that is the problem. Your femur goes for medial torsion, your tibia goes for lateral to compensate, which causes a supinated foot which does not have force absorption. So this is one problem that will be seen, and another problem will be the medial femoral torsion will cause a deviant position of the patella in the patellofemoral groove, okay? So as we all know, the patella is somewhere over here like this. Now if your groove of where your patella sits, right, if it changes to more medial side, because the femur is coming from top, but if there is medial torsion, the patella will tend to go to dislocate laterally, right? Lateral dislocation will be very common because your femur, which was holding your patella like this properly, now it went for a medial torsion, so lateral dislocation will be seen. So that is what is seen at the patella. Okay, so now let's summarize the topic. We talked about flexion extension, abduction, adduction, and internal and external rotation. Flexion extension, we saw how hamstring and rectus femoris, which are two joint muscles, restrict the movement at the hip joint. And these are the muscles which very commonly get tight in people who are having a sedentary life. So knowing these muscles and how to stretch them is very important. I'll try to make a video in future, a very practical video where I would like to talk about different ways you can stretch these muscles. Okay, then going to abduction, adduction, we talked about the ranges and the limiting factors, that is gracillis and TFL. Then going to the internal and external rotation, where we saw lateral rotation is reduced in cases like dysplastic hip, where there is femoral anteversion, and this happens basically your body does this to maximize the congruence at the hip joint and also to minimize the stretch on the anterior capsule. But during this process there is other problems that arise, that is because of your medial femoral torsion there will be deviant position of your patella in the patellofemoral groove, which will lead to lateral dislocation of the patella, and also to compensate the medial femoral torsion, tibia will go for lateral tibial torsion, exactly the opposite, which will create a supinated foot which is rigid and will have no shock absorption. Okay, with that we finish up the topic. That's all for today guys. Thank you for watching. If you like my content, please share it with your friends and don't forget to hit that like button and some comments so that I can get some feedback regarding what other topics I can make. Also don't forget to hit that subscribe button and see you soon in the next video.